Well, I know that a lot of highly sensitive people, empathic people are struggling with people pleasing. Why is this? Why are we appeasing other people? Well, let me get into this, talk about what's underlying people pleasing, and more importantly, how to recover from it. The first thing to understand is the hallmark sign of people pleasing is resentment. If you think you're a people pleaser, but you don't have any resentment, then you're not a people pleaser. Instead, you do things for others that you genuinely want to do without the expectation of getting anything in return. Now, problematic people pleasing is when you are doing things for others as a way to protect yourself from having someone else upset with you, or the perception that you won't be liked, or if you don't do something for someone else, they won't like you. And so what you will end up doing is sometimes drastically even just changing who you are as a person to accommodate sometimes the misbehaviors in others. Over time, this feeling of resentment builds as the lack of reciprocation from others is felt. You keep doing and doing and doing, and you might even be changing yourself a whole bunch, but other people aren't changing. Other people aren't reciprocating. And at the root of this resentment is unresolved anger. So you can see how we're breaking this down, right? There's this need to please others. There's a need to even change others. And we do that through people-pleasing behaviors. And through that is a lack of reciprocation that leaves us feeling resentment. And resentment is unresolved anger. And anger for people pleasers is an emotion that they're always trying to avoid, because people pleasers view anger as bad. You won't find the people pleasers showing their anger or their displeasure in anything. They will keep that hidden. They will keep that close to themselves and stuffed down. This unresolved anger is creating a block in our ability to be authentic. Think about it. If you're not telling people how you really feel, then they'll never know the real you. And so by not saying what's on their mind, the people pleaser remains in this state of inauthenticity. Let me just be who you want me to be. I can be that. I will change myself for you. I will change myself because maybe then that will have you changing too. But it never works that way. Instead, we sit with this feeling of, I would rather take on the discomfort of my own emotions than to make someone else feel uncomfortable by expressing them. That is a key statement. The first step is to reconcile your truth. That, for me, I had to acknowledge that truth that I said earlier, that I would rather suffer the discomfort of my own emotions than to see someone else feel uncomfortable by me expressing them. Now, under this anger that you're not expressing, that's festering as resentment, is fear. There's a fear of expressing your anger, because if you express your anger, if you express your displeasure, if you express your own opinion, well, there's a fear. What are people going to think about me? The fear that people won't like me, the fear that people won't accept me, the fear that people won't understand me. And somewhere down the line, whenever we did express ourselves, somewhere down the line, it didn't go well. It wasn't understood. And it did result in being mistreated. And it did result in abandonment. People leaving our lives. Is it something I said? Is it something I did? Well, I don't want that to happen again. So the people pleaser is also protecting themselves from a fear of abandonment. And to make sure they don't get abandoned, they must not say what's on their mind. But what they're doing instead is abandoning themselves. They're abandoning themselves for the needs of other people. This then results in the people pleaser's unhealthy relationship with anger, right? We will tolerate anger in other people while we try to rid it within ourselves. We might think, well, I'm better than you because I don't show my anger. Somebody else's anger is a weakness. Your anger is a weakness, while not showing my anger is a strength. This is a false belief. Thinking I'm better than you because I don't show my anger and I keep my anger under wraps. I don't get angry like you do. So this is a false belief, because anger is a normal emotion that we all experience. So not expressing anger is actually your weakness. Not expressing your true emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, disappointment, frustration, that is the weakness that people pleasers face. No one will ever know to what degree you're upset or that they've upset you if you never tell them. And we don't want to tell them because we don't want to upset them. Because if we upset them, then they won't want to be in our life anymore. They'll leave. Or at least that's what we think will happen. So we invalidate our own feelings. We tell ourselves to suck it up, or we tell ourselves that people don't really like us, so why bother speaking up anyway? Until one day something happens that fuels that flame of resentment and anger. And that anger comes out as an eruption of anger that just seems to have come out of nowhere. It happens. I know it does. We lose it. You can't hold that anger in forever. One little thing's going to come. It's the saying, the straw that breaks the camel's back. And it seems like you're crying over spilled milk. It's like, what's the big deal? But it's not about that one thing that you're getting angry about. It's about all the other things that led up to it that you haven't been expressing. And it can even be anger with yourself. And now we're really beating ourselves up, because what ultimately happens in the end when we have this eruption is there's conflict that we were trying to avoid. Oh, why did I do that? Why couldn't I hold my anger in? Why couldn't I just, keep it to myself? And the times that we do lose it on someone else, it doesn't give us the confidence to express ourselves again. And then we return back to our passive approach and repressing emotions. So it's very much this all or nothing approach. Okay. Either I just keep it all to myself or I let it all loose. But what's in the middle? What is in the middle? How can we stand up for ourselves and tell other people how we really feel without it coming across as a hostile attack? Right? Because it's likely that we don't have those role models in our life who taught us how to be honest with our feelings. Instead, we may have only seen emotions expressed as anger. And I'm going to just say, if you have volatile people in your life right now, it makes sense not to poke the bear. It makes sense to continue to please them and not say what's really on your mind. But then we have a different problem. Okay, now we have a different problem of tolerating unhealthy relationships. And that is often the environment that people pleasers are in relationships that are not good for us. But we tolerate such unacceptable behavior and we bend and mold ourselves for them. And for some people, these are the only relationships that they have. And some have only ever known unhealthy relationships. So when we allow ourselves to stay in unhealthy relationships, we allow ourselves to stay remaining a people pleaser. So the most important thing for a recovering people pleaser is to find people that you feel safe to communicate your feelings with. But you're not going to feel safe to communicate your feelings with anyone until you've been able to come to that truth in yourself. The second step is to address your fear of abandonment, right? The reason why I would suffer instead of speaking up for myself was because I feared they would never want anything to do with me ever again. If I expressed how I really was and how I really felt, that would mean the end. So it starts with communicating with yourself. And that might mean that you find somebody, maybe a mentor, a therapist, or a coach like myself, to help you uncover this for you, to help guide you in bringing this up to the surface. Out bringing that up to the surface for yourself and just expecting other people to know how you feel to read your mind, to be a mind reader. I think that's what we want sometimes, because that's not happening. We continue to feel misunderstood. We continue to attract unhealthy relationships. We must start to show up for ourselves. And in order to show up for ourselves, it comes to step 3, which is the hermit stage. What is likely to happen now is that many of your connections are going to start to weaken as a result of your waking up to your truth and start honoring yourself. And during this stage, not only have you burned yourself out from people pleasing, but you've also found yourself alone. And this is an important process in your personal transformation. It's a very important phase. And if you fail to recognize this is a time to recharge, recalibrate, refocus, re-energize yourself, you won't be able to move on to the following steps. Step 4 is letting go of the resentment. So while you've had all of this time isolating yourself in the hermit stage, dealing with that anger, letting that anger be released, that unresolved anger that has been leading to your resentment, which creates a block in your ability to be authentic. And I can't be authentic while I still have that fear of abandonment. So that's why we took care of that early, that fear, that shifting over to showing up for myself, tending to my own needs. And now I have that need to process anger in a healthy way. After we've made some movement towards processing anger, processing resentment, then we go into embracing that aloneness versus the loneliness. And how you do this requires a big shift in how you receive your validation. Because as a people pleaser, I was basing my worth on what other people thought about me. So if I didn't have people around to validate me, that would leave me feeling worthless and alone and in a lonely way. So the switch comes from being alone and validating your own worth and being your own best friend. Now you can be alone without being lonely. Step 6 is new energy. Now you're more so in the energy of personal empowerment, personal integrity, honoring your personal needs. Now I'm taking action to live my life on my own terms instead of everyone else's. Once you've shifted your energy, now you're ready for new connections. I was getting better at setting boundaries and growing in personal power and confidence. So now is the time to meet those genuine and authentic people who were just like me and didn't need my approval, and I wasn't seeking theirs. Because you will meet those ones who are those risky connections, the ones you find yourself appeasing while they sit back and allow you to people please away, versus the ones who you don't have to do that with. But there comes a time when in the recovery stage, there's going to be this hermit stage where you do have to pull back and draw back, where there's this very lonely period that you experience. And once you have transformed loneliness into contentment being alone, you can be alone without being lonely now. Now you know you're ready to build those new connections because now you're sitting with a new energy. As you start to bring these feelings up to the surface for you to take care of, for you to tend to, for you to honor and show compassion to, then you'll meet new people who have also started to do that for themselves. Maybe you're going to meet some recovering people pleasers. That's probably the people that you're going to be drawn to, is people who relate to the stuff that you've been through. It's like, yeah, I used to do that too. And this is what's been helpful for me. You'll know the ones who support your recovery because they're the ones who are going to shut down your people pleasing. They're going to say, no, that's okay. You don't need to do that. And they'll encourage you to have your own opinion. They'll encourage you to be your real self. They'll want to see your real self. They'll bring out your real self. You'll be saying to yourself, wow, I really felt like myself around you. And I haven't felt like myself for some time. And thank you. So we want to look for those people